I just see something. I mean, I'm in the room with you guys, but I see at the top of my screen, it says live on custom live streaming service.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we've got the Marion's coming back.
Yeah, I'm going to log off and log on again on my...
Okay, we'll give you 2 minutes for...
Actually, maybe I'll log on my phone first, just to make sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a safety measure. Then we'll get 2 Marions. For anyone who's waiting out there in virtual land, who's not in the room, we're just having a few technical problems. Well, we're not personally, but Marion's there. Marion's there. Just she sounded like a bit of a mouse earlier. You know, like she was in the next. She was shouting from the next room. Well, not even shouting, whispering in the next room.
How about me? Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, we can hear you, Liz.
Okay. That's good.
You know, you got that New Mexico megaphone now.
New Mexico. Yeah.
Okay.
So how was your weekend, John?
Well, it was great, but I mean, it was pretty distanced. You know, I have plenty of company in my virtual world from all over the world.
Yeah.
I went to Liz Weir's barn thing on Saturday night, which is always fantastic. That's my Saturday, my virtual night out. And
yeah.
Then we had Colin Irwin last night, was brilliant. So and now actually it all rocks on. Who did I have? I had a really good children's teller on Friday, and I can't remember who it was for the life of me. Who did? Oh, it was was it Yanina this Friday, Yulia?
No, we had Jan Williams.
Of course it was Jan Williams. Of course it was Jan Williams. I knew that. It's not that the 140 or 200 shows we've done are merging into one another at all.
Wow.
Yeah, we're doing a little less now. We're not doing it quite as intensely as we did at the height of lockdown. So how's it all going? How's it all going in America?
Crazy. I mean, all the fires with it, all the big
everything.
Everything. The fires in the Northwest, California.
Yeah.
You know, not to mention the political stuff, but we'll keep that out.
But that's a given.
But the fires are unnerving, and my son and our granddaughters are there, but they're safe. It's just that they're living with smoke and ash.
And that's not good. You know, as COVID's a lung thing, that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marion, how are we doing?
Worse.
Oh, we've gone totally silent now. I think she's gone away.
Maybe she's coming back on.
Now you're coming back.
Connecting to audio.
Are you speaking? We can't hear you.
Oh,
connecting to audio. That's good.
Connecting to audio.
That's positive.
Oh dear.
Lily,
Oh,
you did.
no, we heard the oh dear.
Oh, my
So
God.
you can
Oh, no,
see.
that's better. That's
Hey.
hugely better. That's
Well, I'm
fine.
going to plug my mic in now.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Can you hear me? now?
Perfect. That's perfect. Life is marvelous.
Hear me?
Everything's fantastic. You're,
Okay.
okay, so you're a bit side of screen at the moment. But you know, maybe I'm just
Oh
being
dear.
fussy. That's it. You're good.
Good, good.
Yeah. So, are we ready, Julio? Ladies and gentlemen, and assembled company wherever you are in this world, and whatever time it is in this world, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe and connecting the world by story. And today, because I have no idea what time it is, so we'll just go a general today, because you could be listening at the top or bottom or the side of the world. I haven't the faintest idea. Today, we're doing stories about incompetent, foolish, and disobedient boys. Now, I'm not sure these creatures exist, but I am told that there are such things in this world. And our first well, as if by magic, our first teller has disappeared. She fell down the trap door in the middle of the stage, but I'm sure she'll be back with it. And when she appears, can we give a huge round of applause for Marian Lipa? Yeah, if we clap loud enough, maybe she'll, you know, if we do that live stage thing, clap loud enough and she'll appear. Yeah. Or maybe that was pure optimism.
Oh, no.
Maybe it was a mischievous boy that made her disappear.
Okay. Right. Now I'm going to change the running order, because it's 8:10, and Marion, if you're listening, we'll put you on second. So, and I should have done this, I should have asked for the pronunciation of Liz's surname. Anyway, Mangual.
Mangual. Mangual, you got it.
Mangual. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, assembled company, please put your hands together and welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe for the first time, Liz Mangual.
Thank you, John, and thank you for having me with the World Storytelling Cafe. Well, foolish beings. Let me see. Well, I immediately thought of one, and he has made the rounds within the island of Puerto Rico, which is where I am from originally. I grew up in New York City, but I'm originally from Puerto Rico, Caribbean island, and so this being, well, he was always, people used to always tell stories about him. I remember when I was a child, I heard stories about him. And then before my abuela, my grandmother, passed on, I used to tell her stories of this person. So now I'm going to tell you. Now, he was often known as quite foolish and sometimes a bit silly. And even sometimes he was a little bit lazy. His name was Juan Bobo. Now, a long, long time ago, not in your time, not in my time, but even way longer than that, Juan Bobo lived alone with his mother in a small village on the island of Puerto Rico. One day, Juan Bobo's mother wanted to have his tío, uncle, his auntie, aunt, tía, and his primitos, his little cousins, over for dinner. But when she walked into her little humble kitchen, she realized, oh, no tengo una olla que sea suficiente de grande. I don't have a big enough pot to cook the arroz con pollo in, the rice chicken. And so his mother, Juan Bobo's mother, went to the door and called Juan Bobo, who was outside in the yard somewhere. Juan Bobo! Juan Bobo, ¿dónde estás? Where are you, Juan Bobo? Come here. Juan Bobo heard his name and he shuffled into the house and said, ¿Qué, mami? Juan Bobo, this evening I'm having your tío, tía, and primitos over for dinner, Juan Bobo. And I need you to, and I want to make a big olla, pot of arroz con pollo. I love arroz con pollo, mami. So what? Juan Bobo, I need you to go up to your abuelita's house, to your grandmother's house up the hill, and borrow her big olla, the iron pot with las tres patas, with the 3 legs. Ay, mommy, do I have to go now? I was outside swinging on the hammock. Juan Bobo, I need that olla now. Okay, mommy, if you say so. And so Juan Bobo walked out the door and up the hill he began. Now, as he went up the hill, he would say this, with every step that he took. 1 leg, 2 legs, 1 leg, 2. Whoever is out there in the audience, John, you can join in. He would say, repeat after me, 1 leg, 2 legs, 1 leg, 2. Well, finally, Juan Bobo made it up the hill, and he knew that he had arrived at his abuelita's house because she had a bright pink house and a bunch of pollitos, little chickens running around in the yard. And so Juan Bobo walked up to the gate, opened it up, and walked towards Abuelita's house. When he arrived, he opened the screen door and went inside. Hola, Abuelita. Hola, Juan Bobo. Hola, Juan Bobo. What brings you here today? Oh, Mommy is having tío and tía primitos over for dinner, and she wants to make a big olla of arroz con pollo, but she doesn't have a big enough pot to cook it in. Can we borrow your big pot with the iron pot with the 3 patas? Of course, Juan Bobo. Of course. But have a seat, Juan Bobo. I will bring you a treat before you leave. I wonder what it's going to be. Abuelita always makes really good treats. And so Abuelita went into the kitchen and she brought out a bowl of dulce de coco. Coconut candy, my favorite. And so Juan Bobo ate dulce de coco until he couldn't eat anymore. And then Abuelita went into the kitchen. She brought out, even though she was una viejita, even though she was an old lady, she was fuerte. And so she brought out the big, heavy iron pot, handed it to Juan Bobo. He lifted it up. Ay, gracias, Abuelita. And out the door he went. He went down the hill carrying the big heavy pot. And as he walked down the hill, he said the same thing he said on his way up. One leg, two legs, one leg, two. ¡Ay! ¡Qué pesada! So heavy. But on he went. One leg, two legs, one leg, two. Ay, estoy cansado. I'm tired. So he took that big heavy pot and placed it on the ground, sat on a rock to rest. Then he looked at the pot. Wait a minute. Uno, dos, tres. 3 legs, and I only have 2. Wait a minute, it's not fair. The pot has 3 legs, I have 2, but I'm doing all the work. Not fair. Oh, that's not fair. So Juan Bobo got up from the rock and sat in the pot. He told the pot, muévete. That means go, move. But the pot did not move. Muévete. Still the pot did not move. You can say that word with me, which means go, muévete. Muévete. But still the pot did not move. Oh, that made Juan Bobo really mad. So he stood up and, wait, you don't want to do any work. You're a lazy pot. Oh, you want to play. You want to play. Okay, we'll play. So we'll race down the hill. That's what we'll do. We'll race down the hill and I will count to 3. When I get to 3, I'll say go. But I should get a head start because I only have 2 legs and you have 3. So ready? Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. And Juan Bobo began to run. And he ran and he ran and he ran down the hill as fast as he could go. He left the pot way back there. He ran and ran, and finally he ran into his house. His mother was in the center of the room. When she saw Juan Bobo running, she said, Juan Bobo, ¿dónde está la olla? Oh, mommy, the pot will be here soon. I was racing it down the hill and I got here first. Juan Bobo, you silly child. Now, Juan Bobo, you better go back up the hill and get me the pot before someone takes it. Okay, mommy. And so Juan Bobo went up the hill the same way he had gone up before. So together, 1 leg, 2 legs, 1 leg, 2. 1 leg, 2 legs, 1 leg, 2. Juan Bobo saw that la olla, the pot, was still where he had left it. You almost got me in trouble with my mommy. I'm going to give you one more chance. One more chance. So Juan Bobo sat in the pot again. And again he said the same word he said before, which means move. Muévete. But again the pot did not move. I said, muévete. But the pot wouldn't move. Oh, this time Juan Bobo was more than mad. He was furioso. He was furious. So Juan Bobo stood up. He looked at the pot. You lazy pot. Oh, I'm so mad Dad, you here, take this. And he kicked the pot. When Juan Bobo kicked the pot began to roll and roll and roll down the hill fast. When Juan Bobo saw the pot rolling, he said, "Hey, wait for me. I was supposed to have a head start." And so Juan Bobo started running after the pot as fast as he could go, but he couldn't catch up with it. Well, when finally Juan Bobo made it inside his house, Juan Bobo's mother already had the pot on top of the stove. And she was making her arroz con pollo. And Juan Bobo, his mother looked at him and she shook her head from side to side. She said, Juan Bobo, yo no entiendo. ¿Cómo fue que la olla llegó a la casa antes que tú? How was it that the pot got home before you did, Juan Bobo? Yo no sé, Mommy. I don't know, but I was raising that pot down the hill and that pot cheated me. Ay, Juan Bobo, you are so foolish. You are so foolish, so silly, and so lazy sometimes, Juan Bobo. But I love you, Juan Bobo. I love you. And she gave him un grande abrazo. Big hug. And then she gave him un grande beso. You know what that is. And that evening, Juan Bobo's tío, tía, and primitos, and even his abuelita from up the hill came over for dinner. They gathered around the table and had a great big feast of arroz con pollo. Colorín colorado, ese cuento se ha acabado. And that's the story of Juan Bobo and the three-legged pot.
That was utterly beautiful, Liz. I look forward to you having a whole evening to yourself. And please bring more Puerto Rican stories, please. You just just fantastic.
Thank you, man.
So we're going to come back across the Atlantic now. We're going to we're going to a centre of learning. We're going to Cambridge, and which used to be down the road from me, and I spent a lot of time telling stories in Cambridge. Post COVID, I shall return to telling stories in Cambridge. But for right now, could you please welcome and make a lot of noise and stomp and clump and throw your grandmothers in the air for Marion and Alipa?
You may have to make a lot of noise because I wasn't sounding too loud earlier. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Well, I was thinking of the story about the most silliest, idlest boy I know. And there are plenty of them in Cambridge. You wouldn't think that with a centre of learning, would you? But the silliest boy I know in any story was a gift from Japan. And I heard it first at the very wonderful Festival at the Edge, which many of us have been to. And it was told by a Japanese storyteller, Hiroko Sensei. And it turns out it's a sort of iconic story among Japanese storytellers. And I think it should be an iconic story for all storytellers. It's the story of Persimmon Boy. Once there was a boy whose head was so empty there was nothing in it except the thought of where he was going to have his next nap. And one day he was walking along the road and he came to a fruit orchard. And there were mango trees and there were orange trees and there were peach trees. And there was a persimmon tree, which looked just right. So he sat down under the tree and he got himself comfortable with his back against the trunk. And he settled down for a beautiful nap. Now, if you've eaten a persimmon, you will know that it's as orange as the brightest orange. It's as smooth as the smoothest mango, and it's best eaten when it's so ripe it's nearly rotten. And one of these persimmons, a really ripe, squishy persimmon, fell splat on the boy's head while he was asleep. Well, this boy, he was sleeping so deeply. He was sleeping for so long. He didn't even wake up when the persimmon fell on his head. In fact, he slept for so long, he was sleeping so deeply, he didn't even notice when that squashy persimmon split open, and from the stone in the middle came a little root that burrowed its way down into that empty head of his. He didn't even notice when it sent out a shoot that grew high in the air and spread out branches,
Really?
and leaves, and ripe
Someone just bought their name.
persimmons.
Yeah, Foe's son. It's a Chinese conglomerate.
And so the
They had
boy,
a big minority holding in Old
when he woke up,
Hold on 2 seconds,
So,
Matt. All right.
they're having a bit
Could
of a-
iPhone mute themselves, please?
They bought the brand from the administrator. 12 million they paid for. That's all. And they left it 12 months and they're just going to relaunch it in the comic book brand.
That is a bit weird.
Yuliu, could you mute iPhone?
That's not very nice, is it? Good old British brand become Chinese.
Well, the thing is, it's business, isn't it?
It's probably
Yeah.
a bit surprising because he's having a business.
At the end of the day, it's in everybody's interest that there are DMCs, but
Yuliu,
if the business is going to restart.
could you mute iPhone?
That sounds better.
That's better.
Yes. So, this is an evening of gremlins. It's the kind of evening storytellers like, I think. So, there was this boy asleep under a persimmon tree with a tree growing out of his head. So, when he woke up, he felt that his head was unusually heavy. And he felt around and he went, "Oh, ripe persimmons." And he ate. He ate that ripe persimmon, every bit of the sweet flesh, and it was the best persimmon he'd ever tasted. So he got up and he started to walk down the road, and as he was walking along, very unusually for him, an idea came into that empty head of his. He said, "I know what I'll do. I'll go down to market and I'll let people pick ripe persimmons off my head. They can buy persimmons off the tree on my head." And so that's exactly what he did. He went down to the market, went round shouting, "Ripe persimmons off a boy's head, come and get them." And I don't know if any of you have ever had a ripe persimmon picked off a boy's head. But nobody in the market had, and so everybody wanted one. And they all bought their ripe persimmons, and they were the best persimmons anyone had ever tasted. And they gave the boy lots of money, and everybody was happy. Except for the fruit sellers in the market, because nobody wanted to buy their fruit that was just in plain old ordinary baskets when they could buy it off a tree on a boy's head. So those fruit sellers, they watched that boy. They followed him. They saw where he went back to the persimmon tree and got himself all comfortable with his back against the trunk and went fast asleep. And when he was asleep, one of the fruit sellers went off to his garden shed and came back with his very big saw. Now we're going to try something that has probably never been done on Zoom before, certainly not by me. We are going to saw through the trunk of that persimmon tree on Zoom. So I'm going to hold this end of the saw, and all the rest of you are going to hold the other one, and we're going to saw. So when I go forward, you're going to go back. Are you ready? That That was the best rhythmic sawing I have ever seen on Zoom. And it worked because that tree went crash. And the boy, do you know, he was sleeping so long and he was sleeping so deeply, he didn't even notice. He didn't even notice that now there was a stump on his head. And he slept so long and he slept so deeply, he didn't even notice that stump rotting on his head and mushrooms growing all over it. But when he woke up, he felt around on his head and he felt something soft, and he smelt that lovely earthy smell of mushrooms. And he said, right fresh mushrooms on my head. I know what I'll do. I'll go down to the market and people can pick fresh mushrooms off my head. And that's what he did. And everybody wanted to buy fresh mushrooms off the boy's head, and everyone gave him money, and everyone was happy except for, I bet you've guessed who was not happy? The mushroom sellers. And they too, they followed the boy. They saw where he was sleeping under the persimmon tree. They went off to their garden sheds and they came back with the biggest spades they could find. And here is another Zoom first. I'm going to take my big spade and I'm going to dig on this side of the Zoom screen, and you can take your spades and dig on the other side of the Zoom screen. Are you ready? He went dig, 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 dig. Hey, we have just dug the biggest hole ever dug on two sides of a Zoom screen. They dug that trunk right out of the boy's head. He was sleeping so long and sleeping so deeply he didn't even notice. He didn't even notice when it started to rain. And the rain fell in the hole and made a pool on his head. Eventually he woke up and he felt around. Woo! I've got a pool on my head. And so he got up and he started to walk down the road, and it was a hot day. And by the side of the road, who should he meet but the master himself, John Rowe. And John Rowe, with his long white beard and his big hat and his waistcoat, he was looking quite hot. Must be hot, your beard, isn't it, John, on a hot day? And the boy looked at him and he said, John, you look so hot. Tell you what, would you like to come for a swim in the pool on top of my head? And John said, yes. I think you did, John. And John Rowe dived right into the pool on top of the boy's head. And do you know, it was wonderful. And he splashed about. But it was a little bit lonely. And so John thought it'd be nice to have a few friends. And do you know what? If you know anything about John Rowe, you will know he has many, many, many friends from all over the world. And he sent out a call on Facebook for all his friends, and they came. They came from New Mexico, and they came from Canada, and they came from England, and they came from Romania. They came from all over the place and dived into the pool on John's head, splashing around, having a wonderful time. Do you know, I think they even sent out for pizza. And so everybody was happy except for one person, the boy. The boy thought, that's not fair. Everyone else is having a lovely time and cooling down except for me. And then he had his best idea yet. He called out, hey, watch out up there, I'm coming in. And he took a great big dive, and he dived straight into the pool on his own head. And you know what? After a while, John realised he had a storytelling gig to go to, and all his friends, they probably had storytelling to do as well. So they all got out and went about their business. But unless he's got out, that's where the boy is still, swimming in the pool on his own head. And that's actually where a lot of us storytellers are, swimming in the pool in our own heads. Thank you.
Oh, lovely, Marion. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I thought, for a change, I'll tell a story. I think this is, I think it's a Czech gypsy story. I haven't been able to find out much about it. The author, it's a lovely book. It's from the 60s, and I had it way before I decided to be a storyteller. But I fell in love with the characters. It was a book of gypsy folk tales, and the only reason I think they're from Czechoslovakia is that the author is M. Variskova, and I can't find out anything about him. I look him up on Google, I can't find anything. And but that's a Czech name, so I assume they're Czech gypsy stories. But the characters are fantastic, and there's and this one's character called Delino. Delino, well, he wasn't what you'd call clever in a conventional sense. In fact, you know, he lived with his brothers and his father. They were charcoal burners in the middle of the forest, and it was a particularly hard winter. But, you know, they never really asked Delino to do anything because, it took longer. We've all met people like this. It takes longer to explain the job than to do the job yourself. And but there was such a heavy winter, such a hard winter. There was such demand for charcoal. It was all hands on deck. And they said, Delina, you're going to have to come and collect charcoal for us. Well, where do I collect charcoal? Said Delina. Have you just come down from the sky, boys? You go to the forest. You'll need the sack and this axe. What will I need the sack and axe for? Said Delino. Well, you'll need the axe. Just take it. Just work it out. Well, he goes into the forest and he walks around for hours and he's thinking, how can I make charcoal? I need wood to make charcoal. I haven't got any wood. I haven't got this, that. His head is really aching. It's a huge problem. And he's going back. He said, I'll have to go back and ask. And he's halfway, and he said, I can't face my brothers. I can't face my dad. It's just, they're just going to go on about me all night. And he suddenly sees this old, rotting tree, bit of a hollow in it. And he thought, that's neither use nor man to beast. I think I'll cut it down. At least I can take some wood back. And as he sunk his axe into the tree, seemed to sigh. And when he sank his axe for a second time at the tree, there was a great yelp. Because inside that tree lived a devil. Now that devil had been kicked out of hell itself. He had broken all the rules of hell. And we all know currently there are people in charge of things, and I'm not mentioning any names because I don't want to politicize this story at all, who just break all the rules of hell and should be even kicked out there by Beelzebub himself. But he had broken all, and he'd been condemned to live in the center of this tree for 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days. And he wasn't allowed out. If he came out at all, he wouldn't be allowed back. If anyone cut down the tree, he wouldn't be allowed back. So he couldn't even come out and tell Delino to stop. So he said, you better not cut down the tree or you better look out. Look out for what? Said Delino. And carried on with his axe. And it was obvious the little devil had it was no good just threatening the boy. He just couldn't be frightened. So he said, okay, I'll give you as much wood as you want. He said, it's not wood I want, said Delino. It's charcoal. Well, do you have a sack? Certainly. Throw it in. threw the sack into the hollow tree. Suddenly it was thrown out and it was full of charcoal. Delino heaved that big sack onto his back. And he was a strong old boy. And he carried that back. And his brothers and his dad were astounded. Delino's got a sack full of charcoal. And when they emptied it, it wasn't just charcoal. On each piece, one half was black charcoal. The other half was gold. And there was enough gold for them all to have houses of their own. Delino stayed with his mum and dad, but the brothers went off and they got themselves wives and families. And Dad turned around to Delino and said, isn't it about time you took a wife? Well, what do I want one of those for? I'm kind of, I'm happy here. Mum cooks for me. You look after me. Well, no, you're going to have to find some, well, you can't find yourself a nice gypsy girl to marry. Actually, Dad said, if you name someone, I'll go to the dad and go to their dad and ask if you can marry her. It was those kind of days. He said, actually, I want to marry a princess, and if you're going to go, you better ask the king. I said, I can't do that. They'll kill me. He said, don't you worry about it. And Delino goes out and he goes in the forest again. He gets his axe and he whacks it into a tree. Oh! You're back. Yeah, it's me. The one you gave the charcoal to. I need something that where I can't be hurt and I can't be cut and I can't be burnt. Well, it's not as easy as that, said the devil. Oh, it better be, said the boy, or I'll cut this tree down. All right, throw me in a bottle. Do you think I'll carry bottles with me? No, sort out your own bottle. You're the devil. You can do what you like. Right. You're in a lot of trouble, said the devil, but can't do much about it. I better do it. He said, you better not drop this bottle when actually put your hand in. I'll give it to you. Now, something in Delino's reminded him that you can't actually compromise by the devil. And he refused to put his hand. He said, you throw it out here. Well, you better catch it, said the devil. Because I ain't doing you another one. You'll do me as many as I want, said Delino. Well, the bottle came out and Delino went and gave it to his dad. And he said, strip off, and rubbed the water into his dad. And he said, now go and ask the king. He said, no harm will come to you. Well, Dad, today I brought that gold. And, he did seem to have some kind of power. Well, he went in and he knocked on the guards, threw him out first of all. And he went back again and they set the dogs on him, and the dogs sort of wild dogs, and they got near the dad, and they did. Dogs all threw back, and the guards went to the king and said, there's this scruffy old gypsy at the gate, says he wants to wants to get his son to marry your daughter. Well, and we'll set the dogs on him. We have, and they just ran away. Well, shoot him with the 7-pounder. They shot him with the 7-pounder, and when the smoke had cleared, he was just walking through. He thought, well, thought the king, this is a great magician. I better do what he says. And when Dad told him what Delino wanted, he said, well, send him to me so we can get the measure of it. Well, by this time, the story had got round about the 7-pounder and the smoke, and everyone's getting, you killed your father, they said to Delino. He said, Delino said, well, you look out the window, who's coming down the road? And there was Dad, large as life. Dad said, well, the king wants to see you. He says, I don't want to see him for the wedding. Go back and tell him. Just tell him to set the date. Well, this time they fired a 12-pounder at Dad, but it still made no difference. And the king gave in. He set the date. Well, come the day, Delino says, Dad says to Delino, he said, you can't go like that, and besides, if the rest of the village doesn't get invited to the wedding, you're going to be in big trouble, and we need to come too. Don't worry, said Delino, I'll sort that out. He popped down the tree, got his axe, whack. What do you want now? I want something that whatever I think of, I can have. Well, said the devil, and he's getting near the end of his 7 years by now, and he thinks, well, I've nearly made it. I'm not going to let this boy wreck it. And he said, pop up the top of this oak tree. And there's a golden acorn. Whatever you want, if you pop it in your mouth and just think about it, it'll happen. Lino, sure enough, there was a golden acorn. Lino put it in his pocket. Set off to the castle. Dad had looked at him, and we could all remember when we were children, even Santa Mike down there. And, when our parents said, you can't go and see that person dressed like that, smarten yourself up. And Alistair has never forgotten that lesson. He's still incredibly smart. And but Delino's all in these scruffy clothes, and he says, don't worry about it. I'll sort it out. He said, invite everyone else as well. Well, Delino gets to the palace. I tell you what, when the princess saw him, she just fainted. Scruffy little gypsy boy. Barefoot. And then this great horde comes from the village, singing and dancing and making merry, and they fill the courtyard. And there's a cherry tree in the corner of the courtyard. It's full of cherries. Well, it wasn't for many seconds. I'll tell you what, they taste, that cherries straight from the tree taste so good, they weren't going to last long. And they made ready for the wedding. Well, all the gypsies sat round at the long tables, and they were sort of given the worst of China. And the wedding took place, and there was the princess is sort of brought round smelling salts, and she's taken there. She won't even look at him. And just as at the altar, just as the wedding ceremony was take place, Lino popped that golden acorn into his mouth. And the princess looked down. There was beautiful shiny boots. And there was a beautiful velvet suit. And there was a frilled shirt. And there was this beautiful gypsy boy with his long black curly locks, beautiful piercing eyes. And she fell instantly in love. Meanwhile, in the courtyard, everyone was in the smartest of clothes. And there was silver. And there was a great feast. Well, inside, someone complained. One of the king's guests. He said, they're eating pheasant out there. Those gypsies are eating pheasant, and all you serve to us is chicken. And they left. So Delino turned to his bride and said, it's a bit lonely in here, but you go out and join my mates. And they went out, and there was a lot of singing, and there was a lot of dancing, there was a lot of fiddle playing. And eventually Delino said, I think it's time we'll go. Okay, I'll get Dad to send a horse and carriage. Don't worry, said Delino, I'll sort one out. Well, hardly had he thought about it when there was horse and carriage sitting there, and they go off. And they're going down the road, and a band of gypsies are following them down, and they're still laughing, and they're singing, and they're playing on their fiddles. And the princess turned around and said, I love you dearly, but I don't even know your name. Without thinking, Delino said, Delino. And that golden acorn popped out of his mouth and onto the road. That 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days were up, and behind the carriage was the devil himself. And he picked up that acorn. He said, now I have it, and your luck's over. And with that, the carriage disappeared. Delino's fine clothes disappeared. All the fine clothes disappeared. And the king was looking, and he sent his guard down to get the princess back. And she started crying. Delino said, are you crying because I'm a gypsy boy again? She said, no, I'm crying because they're going to take me back. And I'm in love with you. And the captain of the guard came up and said, now, You're coming back with us, she said to Princess. And Princess Delino said, actually, we're legally married, and it's kind of up to her. And the captain of guard turned around and said, okay, if she wants to stay, she'll stay. But if she wants to come back, she can come back. It's down to her. And of course, she wanted to stay with Delino. And the captain of guard went back to the palace, and Delino and the other gypsies went back to the village. And to tell you the truth, from that day on, Delino became the finest charcoal burner in the land. And they lived well. Not as royalty do, but as they needed to, from that day onwards. And if you go to that village, you might still see their descendants. I do like my foolish boys to have it all work. It gives me some hope if it all works out for them in the end. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alistair and Bob. They really probably didn't have a choice. And there's and Santa Mike and Marion and our two tellers, Marion and Liz. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much. If anyone wants to speak to each other, they're welcome now. We can retire to the bar for a little tipple before we can leave, or we can just leave.
I love the stories that everyone told. John, thank you. Marion, I love that story of Persimmon Boy. Yeah,
Right.
Thank you for sharing your wonderful stories and for having me be part of it.
Well, thank you, but and neither of you have done a full set for us yet. So, Liz, I'd love you to do. You know, I'd support Puerto Rican tales, because we've got no one doing Puerto Rican tales, so that would just be wonderful. And
Okay.
if you like, it's not compulsory, but that's my request.
No, yeah, sometime in October, I think, maybe.
Yeah. And Marion, I'd love you to do. If you could do, I mean, you're not stuck with just doing a children's set. But on Friday nights, we do we're set for children on Friday nights. And if you could do me a Friday night at some point, that would be fantastic. And then we'll let you do a big person set.
It's children I'm really missing.
Yeah, I thought it was, you know, because when I first met you, you were just retiring from being a nursery teacher, I think.
Oh, it took me a long time to escape that.
Yeah, but it was obviously you had a great love for them, so you know, so if you can do us a children's set, that would be fantastic.
Oh.
Well, thank you all, and